The Golden Terrace restaurant buzzes with the quiet sophistication that only money can buy. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths, and the soft clink of expensive silverware creates a symphony of privilege. At a corner table near the window, Maya Blackstone sits alone, her simple navy sweater and jeans a stark contrast to the designer dresses and tailored suits around her. She studies the menu with quiet concentration, occasionally glancing toward the entrance. The restaurant's atmosphere shifts when Victoria Sterling sweeps through the front door. At 55, she commands attention with her perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a crimson Chanel dress that costs more than most people's monthly salary, and diamonds that catch the light with every dramatic gesture. Her entourage of equally well-dressed friends follows in her wake, their laughter sharp and performative. Victoria's eyes scan the dining room with the predatory precision of someone accustomed to judging others. When her gaze lands on Maya, her expression transforms from mild interest to undisguised disgust. She whispers something to her companions, who turn to stare as well, their faces mirroring her disdain. "Excuse me," Victoria announces loudly, her voice cutting through the restaurant's refined ambiance as she strides toward Maya's table. "What exactly are you doing here?" Maya looks up calmly, setting down her menu. "I'm having lunch." "Having lunch?" Victoria's laugh is sharp and cruel. "This is the Golden Terrace, not some street corner diner. Do you have any idea what a meal costs here?" The surrounding conversations begin to fade as other diners turn their attention to the unfolding scene. Maya's voice remains steady. "I'm a paying customer, just like everyone else." Victoria's face flushes with anger. "Paying customer? Look at yourself. That cheap sweater, those discount jeans, no jewelry worth mentioning. You clearly don't belong in a place like this." She steps closer, her voice rising. "I am Victoria Sterling. My husband is a city councilman. I know exactly who should and shouldn't be dining in establishments of this caliber." Without warning, Victoria's hand flies across Maya's face with a sharp crack that echoes through the now silent restaurant. "Know your place and get out!" Maya slowly touches her cheek where a red mark is already forming. Instead of tears or anger, a small smile plays at the corners of her mouth. She reaches for her purse, pulls out her phone, and deliberately points toward the corner of the ceiling. "Mrs. Sterling, do you see that camera up there, and that one over by the bar? This entire encounter has been recorded." Victoria follows Maya's gaze, her confidence wavering slightly. Maya's voice carries a quiet authority that wasn't there before. "It's the 21st century, Mrs. Sterling. Everything is documented now." Maya Blackstone, though she rarely uses her married name in public, carries herself with the quiet dignity of someone who has faced adversity and emerged stronger. At 40, she possesses an understated elegance that has nothing to do with designer labels or expensive accessories. Her husband, David Blackstone, CEO of Blackstone Industries worth over $3 billion, is currently in meetings on the 47th floor of the building that houses this very restaurant. Maya has always preferred simplicity over ostentation. Despite having access to unlimited wealth, she finds joy in small things: volunteering at the local library, tutoring underprivileged children in mathematics, and maintaining genuine friendships with people who know nothing of her husband's fortune. Her Harvard MBA hangs in David's office, not hers, a reminder of the sharp intellect hidden beneath her modest exterior. The couple made a conscious decision early in their marriage to live quietly. David travels frequently for business, managing global operations, while Maya focuses on philanthropic work that genuinely impacts communities. They own multiple properties but prefer their understated penthouse overlooking the city. Maya drives a modest sedan, not because they cannot afford better, but because she believes luxury should serve purpose, not ego. Victoria Sterling represents everything Maya dislikes about wealth. At 55, Victoria has spent the last 20 years as the wife of Councilman Robert Sterling, a position she has leveraged into a personal empire of social influence and casual cruelty. She chairs several charity boards, not from genuine compassion, but because it provides platforms for her to exercise power over others. Her racism is not subtle. She has made careers difficult for people of color throughout the city, using her husband's political connections to create barriers and obstacles. Victoria's worldview is simple. There are people who matter and people who do not, and skin color is her primary method of categorization. She has never worked a day in her life, but considers herself superior to those who have. Her designer wardrobe and jewelry collection serve as armor against a world that might otherwise ignore her entirely. The Golden Terrace itself holds significance beyond its reputation as the city's premier dining establishment. The restaurant occupies the ground floor of Blackstone Tower, though this fact is not widely advertised. Maya has eaten here dozens of times, always quietly, always without fanfare. The staff knows her, but they respect her desire for privacy. Only James Rodriguez, the restaurant manager, knows her true identity, and he has never betrayed that confidence. James, a first-generation Mexican-American who worked his way up from busboy to manager over 15 years, has witnessed Victoria's behavior before. She has complained about too many foreign workers and demanded that certain staff members not serve her table. She once told Sarah Chen, the head server, that Asian people don't understand fine dining service after Sarah forgot to refill her water glass immediately. These interactions have created a restaurant atmosphere where the staff walks on eggshells around Victoria Sterling, while they genuinely care for Maya, who always treats them with respect and remembers their names, asks about their families, and tips generously without making a show of it. The restaurant has fallen completely silent, except for the soft jazz playing overhead. Every conversation has stopped, every fork has been set down, and all eyes focus on the unfolding drama. Maya remains seated, her composure intact despite the red handprint on her cheek. Victoria, emboldened by what she perceives as Maya's passivity, continues her assault. "I don't know where you scraped together enough money to walk into this establishment, but this is not the place for people like you. Look around. Do you see anyone else dressed like they shop at discount stores?" Maya's voice remains level. "And what exactly determines who belongs here, Mrs. Sterling?" "Standards," Victoria shouts, her arms gesturing wildly. "Breeding, education, social standing. Things you clearly lack. I can tell just by looking at you that you don't understand what this restaurant represents." From across the dining room, James Rodriguez watches with growing anxiety. He knows he should intervene, but Victoria Sterling has made his life difficult before. Her husband's office has sent health inspectors to the restaurant 3 times in the past year, always after Victoria has been dissatisfied with some aspect of her service. Sarah Chen, the head server, stands frozen near the kitchen doors. She remembers Victoria's comment about Asian people and feels a mixture of fear and solidarity with Maya. Several other staff members have gathered, whispering among themselves, but none dare to step forward. Victoria's voice grows louder, more theatrical. "This restaurant serves the finest clientele in the city. Business leaders, politicians, people who matter. We don't need elements that lower the tone of the establishment." The racial undertone in her words is unmistakable now. Several diners shift uncomfortably in their seats. An elderly couple at a nearby table exchanges shocked glances, while a businessman at the bar pulls out his phone and begins recording. "Mrs. Sterling," Maya says quietly, "I think you should reconsider what you're doing." "Reconsider?" Victoria's laugh is sharp and ugly. "I'm protecting the integrity of this establishment. Someone has to maintain standards. I have connections throughout this city, restaurant owners, hotel managers, country club presidents. One word from me, and doors will close to people who don't meet our community's expectations." Maya stands slowly, her movement deliberate and controlled. At 5 feet 6 inches, she is several inches shorter than Victoria, but something in her bearing makes her seem larger. Are you threatening me, Mrs. Sterling? I'm educating you, Victoria snaps, about how the real world works, about power and position and knowing your place in society. The tension in the restaurant is palpable. Several diners have stopped eating entirely, watching the confrontation with a mixture of horror and fascination. A young couple near the window whispers urgently to each other, the woman clearly distressed by Victoria's behavior. James finally approaches the table, his hands trembling slightly. Mrs. Sterling, perhaps we could— James! Victoria whirls on him. How dare you interrupt me? I'm dealing with a situation that affects the reputation of this establishment. Your job is to ensure that the wrong sort of people don't diminish the experience for paying customers. James's face flushes with anger and embarrassment, but he knows he cannot afford to lose this job. He has a family to support and a mortgage to pay. I understand, Mrs. Sterling, but perhaps— There is no perhaps, Victoria cuts him off. This woman needs to leave immediately. If she won't go voluntarily, call security. Maya watches this exchange with growing anger, not at James, but at Victoria's casual cruelty toward someone who cannot defend himself without risking his livelihood. She sees the fear in James's eyes, the humiliation of being forced to participate in something he knows is wrong. Mr. Rodriguez, Maya says gently, you don't need to worry about this situation. I can handle it myself. Victoria laughs triumphantly. Handle it? What are you going to do? Call your lawyer? Sue me? Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? At that moment, the restaurant's front door opens, and Councilman Robert Sterling enters with his usual entourage of aides and security personnel. At 60, he carries himself with the arrogance of a man who has spent decades believing his own publicity. His silver hair is perfectly styled, his suit obviously custom-tailored, and his expression suggests he considers himself the most important person in any room he enters. Victoria's face lights up with malicious glee. Robert, perfect timing. I'm dealing with a situation here. Councilman Sterling surveys the scene with practiced political instincts. He sees his wife standing over a seated black woman, notes the attention of other diners, and immediately assumes his wife is in the right. After all, in his worldview, Victoria's social position gives her the authority to determine who belongs in elite spaces. What seems to be the problem, darling? He asks, his voice carrying the practiced warmth of a career politician. Victoria points dramatically at Maya. This woman has forced her way into the restaurant and refuses to leave when I've explained that she doesn't meet our community standards. Robert Sterling looks at Maya with the same dismissive expression his wife had shown earlier. Miss, I'm Councilman Robert Sterling. I have significant influence in this city, and I can make things very difficult for people who cause problems in establishments frequented by important citizens. Maya looks up at him calmly. And what kind of problems do you think I'm causing, Councilman? The problem of not understanding social boundaries, Robert replies smoothly. Of not recognizing when you're in a space designed for people of a certain caliber. Victoria nods enthusiastically. Exactly. Robert, I've been trying to explain to her that this restaurant serves a very specific clientele. People with education, breeding, proper backgrounds. Robert Sterling's chest swells with the familiar pleasure of exercising power. I know every business owner in this city. One phone call from me, and you'll find it very difficult to get service anywhere that matters. I also happen to be close personal friends with the police chief. If there are reports of someone causing disturbances in public establishments— The threat hangs in the air like smoke. Maya remains seated, but her posture has shifted slightly. The deference that Victoria and Robert expect is notably absent. Councilman Sterling, Maya says slowly, are you threatening to abuse your political position to harass a private citizen? Robert's smile is cold and practiced. I'm simply explaining how things work in this community. People who understand their place generally find life much easier than those who don't. Victoria practically bounces with excitement. Robert, she's been completely unreasonable. I've tried to handle this politely, but some people simply don't respond to gentle guidance. James Rodriguez stands several feet away, his face a mask of professional neutrality that barely conceals his disgust. He has watched this scene play out too many times before, powerful people using their positions to humiliate those they consider beneath them. But this time feels different. There is something about Maya's calm demeanor that suggests this confrontation will not end as the Sterlings expect. Other diners have begun pulling out their phones. The businessman at the bar is openly recording now, and several people are discreetly taking photos. In the age of social media, public displays of racism travel fast, and the Sterling name is well known enough to make this a newsworthy incident. Victoria, oblivious to the gathering digital documentation of her behavior, continues her performance. Robert, perhaps you should call security. This woman clearly doesn't understand reason. Robert Sterling nods authoritatively. James, I suggest you resolve this situation immediately. The Golden Terrace has a reputation to maintain, and incidents like this reflect poorly on the establishment's management. Maya finally speaks, her voice cutting through their self-satisfied posturing. Councilman Sterling, Mrs. Sterling, are you both quite finished? The quiet authority in her tone makes both of them pause. Victoria's eyes narrow suspiciously. What did you say? Maya stands gracefully, her movement drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. I asked if you were finished, because if you are, I'd like to make a phone call. She pulls out her phone, a latest model device that Victoria notes is far more expensive than she would have expected from someone she has dismissed as financially inferior. Who exactly do you think you're calling? Victoria asks mockingly. Your boss to explain why you'll be late back to work? Maya scrolls through her contacts and selects a number. She puts the phone on speaker, and the ringing tone echoes slightly in the quiet restaurant. David, she says when the call connects, could you come down to the restaurant for a moment? I'm having a discussion with Councilman Sterling and his wife that I think you might find interesting. The voice that comes through the speaker is smooth, confident, and unmistakably that of someone accustomed to command. Are you all right? I'm in the middle of a board meeting, but if you need me... I'm fine, Maya replies, her eyes never leaving Robert Sterling's increasingly pale face. But I think these people would like to meet you. I'll be right down. David's voice says. Give me 5 minutes. Maya ends the call and looks back at the Sterlings. Robert Sterling's political instincts are beginning to sound alarm bells. The name David, the casual way Maya called him, the fact that he's somewhere in this building and can be downstairs in 5 minutes, pieces of a puzzle are beginning to form in his mind. David who? Victoria demands, though her voice has lost some of its earlier confidence. Maya smiles for the first time since the confrontation began. My husband. The 5 minutes that follow feel like an eternity. Victoria Sterling paces nervously while her husband stands frozen, his political mind racing through possibilities. The name David, spoken with such casual intimacy by Maya, combined with the obvious wealth of her phone and her complete lack of intimidation in the face of their threats, suggests something far more serious than either of them initially realized. Robert Sterling's knowledge of the city's power structure is encyclopedic. He knows that the Golden Terrace occupies the ground floor of Blackstone Tower. He knows that David Blackstone, CEO of Blackstone Industries, maintains offices on the 47th floor. And he knows that his own political career depends heavily on development projects that require approval from Blackstone Industries' massive investment portfolio. The restaurant's front entrance opens with a soft chime, and David Blackstone enters with the quiet confidence of a man who owns the building. At 45, he possesses the lean build of someone who maintains physical fitness despite a demanding schedule. His charcoal gray suit is impeccably tailored, his silver-streaked hair perfectly styled, and his presence immediately commands the attention of everyone in the room. James Rodriguez and the entire restaurant staff snap to attention. Good afternoon, Mr. Blackstone, James says with genuine warmth and obvious respect. David nods to James before his attention focuses on his wife. His expression shifts from mild concern to cold anger as he takes in the red mark still visible on Maya's cheek. Maya, he says gently, approaching her table. What happened to your face? Mrs. Sterling slapped me, Maya replies matter-of-factly. She felt I didn't belong in this restaurant. David's gaze turns to Victoria Sterling, and the temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. You struck my wife? Victoria Sterling, who has spent the last few minutes in growing panic, tries to recover her earlier bravado. I didn't know who she was. If I had known... If you had known, you wouldn't have slapped her. David's voice is deceptively quiet. So you only assault people you consider powerless. Robert Sterling steps forward, his face ashen, but his political instincts still functioning. Mr. Blackstone, I had no idea. If I had known Mrs. Blackstone was your wife, this never would have happened. Councilman Sterling, David says, his tone carrying the weight of someone who has ended careers with less provocation. You're missing the point entirely. The issue isn't that you didn't recognize my wife. The issue is that you and Mrs. Sterling felt entitled to humiliate and assault someone based entirely on her skin color and your assumptions about her social status. Maya stands beside her husband, her hand briefly touching his arm in a gesture that speaks to years of partnership and mutual support. David, they also threatened Mr. Rodriguez's job and suggested they could have me arrested for causing disturbances. David's attention shifts to James Rodriguez, who stands nearby with obvious anxiety. James, is this true? Mr. Blackstone, James begins carefully. Mrs. Sterling has made it clear on previous occasions that she finds certain aspects of our staff unsuitable for an establishment of this caliber. Unsuitable how? David asks, though his tone suggests he already knows the answer. James glances nervously at the Sterlings before answering. She has requested that staff members of certain ethnic backgrounds not serve her table. She has also made comments about immigration status and suggested that diversity hiring practices compromise service quality. The revelation hangs in the air like a toxic cloud. Several diners audibly gasp, and phones continue recording from multiple angles. Victoria Sterling realizes that her behavior has been documented not just today, but as a pattern stretching back months or years. I was protecting the restaurant's reputation, Victoria says desperately. Maintaining standards that benefit everyone. Maya speaks for the first time since David's arrival, her voice carrying a quiet steel that commands attention. Mrs. Sterling, whose reputation exactly were you protecting? Because from where I'm standing, the only reputation being damaged is your own. David retrieves his own phone and speed dials a number. James, could you please access the security footage from today's lunch service? I'd like to review exactly what transpired. James produces a tablet and, after a few moments of navigation, brings up the security feed. The black and white footage clearly shows Victoria approaching Maya's table, the escalating confrontation, the slap, and Robert Sterling's arrival and subsequent threats. Would you like me to send this to your legal team, sir? James asks. Please do, David replies. And make sure copies are preserved. I suspect we'll need them. Robert Sterling's political survival instincts finally overcome his shock. Mr. Blackstone, surely we can resolve this matter privately. Victoria made a mistake, but there's no need to involve lawyers or publicity. A mistake? Maya's laugh is sharp and bitter. Councilman Sterling, your wife didn't accidentally slap me. She made a deliberate choice to assault someone she considered inferior. You made a deliberate choice to threaten me with police harassment and economic retaliation. These weren't mistakes. They were reveals of character. Victoria Sterling, realizing that her social position and her husband's political power offer no protection in this situation, drops to her knees beside Maya's table. "Please, Mrs. Blackstone, I'm begging you. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. I'll do anything to make this right." The sight of Victoria Sterling, imperious, racist Victoria Sterling, on her knees in the middle of the Golden Terrace sends shockwaves through the watching crowd. Phones capture every moment, and the video will be uploaded to social media within minutes. Robert Sterling looks at his wife in horror, not because of her racism, but because of the political implications of her public humiliation. "Victoria, get up!" he hisses. "You're making this worse." But Maya's response surprises everyone. "Mrs. Sterling, please stand up." Victoria looks up hopefully. "You'll forgive me? I didn't tell you to stand up because I forgive you," Maya says clearly. "I told you to stand up because groveling doesn't undo the harm you've caused, and it doesn't represent genuine change in your character." Victoria Sterling rises unsteadily, her face streaked with tears that might be genuine remorse or simple fear of consequences. Maya continues, her voice loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Mrs. Sterling, do you want to know why I won't have you arrested for assault, even though I have every legal right to do so?" Victoria nods mutely. "Because I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in education. You slapped me because you assumed I was powerless. You threatened me because you believed your position made you untouchable. But power, real power, isn't about the ability to harm others. It's about the responsibility to protect them." David watches his wife with obvious pride and admiration. This is the woman he fell in love with. Brilliant, compassionate, and utterly unbreakable in the face of injustice. Maya looks directly at Robert Sterling. "Councilman, you threatened to use your political office to retaliate against a private citizen because of a personal dispute. You suggested that police resources should be used to harass someone who committed no crime other than existing in a space you felt was above her station. Do you understand that these actions constitute abuse of public office?" Robert Sterling's face has gone completely white. He understands exactly what Maya is saying, and he knows that his political career hangs by a thread. "Now," Maya continues, "let me tell you something about real power and real responsibility." Maya Blackstone stands in the center of the Golden Terrace, surrounded by stunned diners, recording phones, and two of the most powerful people in the city reduced to trembling supplicants. But instead of reveling in their humiliation, she chooses a different path. "Mrs. Sterling, Councilman Sterling," she begins, her voice carrying clearly throughout the restaurant. "You both seem to believe that power comes from the ability to exclude, to diminish, to harm those you consider beneath you. Let me show you what actual power looks like." She turns to James Rodriguez, who has been watching the proceedings with a mixture of relief and amazement. "James, how long have you worked here?" 15 years, Mrs. Blackstone," James replies, his voice steady for the first time since the confrontation began. "And in that time, have you ever been treated with anything less than complete respect by my husband or myself?" "Never, ma'am. You and Mr. Blackstone have always treated the entire staff as valued professionals." Maya nods and addresses the room, though her words are clearly intended for the Sterlings. "True power isn't measured by how many people you can hurt. It's measured by how many people you can help. It isn't demonstrated by exclusion, it's demonstrated by inclusion. And it isn't proven by making others feel small, it's proven by helping others stand tall." Victoria Sterling, still shaking from her public humiliation, makes one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Mrs. Blackstone, I understand you're angry, but surely you can see that I was just trying to maintain standards. This restaurant caters to a very specific clientele, and mixing different types of people can create complications." The racist undertone in her words is unmistakable, and several diners audibly gasp. Maya's expression hardens. Different types of people? Maya's voice is dangerously quiet. Please, Mrs. Sterling, elaborate on what you mean by different types. Victoria realizes that she has made a critical error, but she is too deep in her prejudice to extract herself gracefully. Well, you have to admit that people from different backgrounds sometimes have different expectations about behavior and service. The silence that follows is deafening. Even Robert Sterling looks horrified at his wife's inability to stop digging herself deeper into racist territory. Maya's voice, when she speaks, carries the authority of someone who has spent years studying human nature and social dynamics. Mrs. Sterling, let me help you understand something fundamental about human dignity. Every person in this restaurant, every person in this city, deserves respect not because of their bank account, their skin color, their family name, or their job title. They deserve respect because they are human beings. She gestures toward the restaurant staff. Sarah Chen, who you insulted for being Asian, has a master's degree in hospitality management and speaks 4 languages fluently. Marcus Williams, whom you've complained about for being too urban, is putting himself through law school while working 2 jobs to support his younger siblings. Maria Santos, whom you've dismissed as just another immigrant, fled violence in her home country and built a new life through courage and determination that you could never understand. Each revelation lands like a physical blow. Victoria Sterling's worldview, built on assumptions and prejudices, crumbles as Maya systematically dismantles her ignorance. David Blackstone watches his wife with obvious admiration. This is why he fell in love with her, not just her intelligence or her beauty, but her fundamental decency and her ability to find strength in principles rather than position. But Mrs. Sterling, Maya continues, your racism isn't just morally reprehensible, it's also incredibly stupid from a business perspective. She turns to her husband. David, would you mind sharing some information about Blackstone Industries' relationship with the city? David steps forward, his voice carrying the crisp authority of a Fortune 500 CEO. Certainly. Blackstone Industries currently has contracts with the city worth approximately $200 million annually. We employ over 15,000 people in this metropolitan area. Our tax payments represent roughly 23% of the city's total revenue base. Robert Sterling's knees nearly buckle as he realizes the implications of this information. Maya continues the devastating revelation. The $50 million downtown development project that your husband has been courting for the past 18 months, the one that would revitalize 6 city blocks and create thousands of jobs. I chair the committee that makes the final approval decision. Victoria Sterling begins to hyperventilate as the full scope of her mistake becomes clear. The contract renewal for waste management services that represents 30% of your husband's largest campaign contributor's annual revenue, that also requires approval from companies in our portfolio. Robert Sterling finally finds his voice, though it emerges as barely more than a whisper. Mrs. Blackstone, I beg you to understand that my wife's actions don't represent my views or my administration's policies. Maya's smile is sharp as a blade. Councilman Sterling, your wife's actions represent exactly what they've always represented. The beliefs and values that you've enabled and supported throughout your marriage and your political career. The only difference today is that she targeted someone with the power to hold you accountable. The truth of this statement reverberates through the restaurant. Victoria Sterling has not suddenly become racist. She has simply revealed the racism that has always driven her behavior toward people she considered powerless. However, Maya continues, and both Sterlings look up with desperate hope. I want you to understand something important. I am not going to destroy your careers, Councilman Sterling. I am not going to have you arrested, Mrs. Sterling. Do you know why? Neither of them dares to speak. Because revenge is not justice. Because true power doesn't require the destruction of others to prove itself. And because I believe, perhaps naively, that people can change when they finally understand the consequences of their actions. She pauses, looking directly into Victoria Sterling's eyes. But let me be absolutely clear about something. Your behavior today was not an aberration. It was a revelation. You didn't accidentally slip into racism. You revealed the racism that has always been in your heart. The question now is not whether you'll face consequences, but whether you'll learn from them. Maya turns to address the entire restaurant, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Everyone here has witnessed something important today. You've seen how quickly authority can become tyranny when it's not grounded in principle. You've seen how power without accountability becomes cruelty. And hopefully, you've also seen that true strength comes not from the ability to harm others, but from the courage to stand up when others are being harmed. She looks back at the Sterlings one final time. Mrs. Sterling, you slapped me because you thought I was weak. But here's the truth that should terrify you more than any revenge I could take. I am not weak. I never was weak. The only thing that was weak was your character, your judgment, and your understanding of the world you actually live in. The final blow comes in the form of a simple, devastating truth. You can slap me once, Mrs. Sterling, but the truth will slap you back 1,000 times. And unlike you, the truth never apologizes. The silence that follows is profound and complete. Victoria Sterling stands frozen, tears streaming down her face as the full weight of her actions settles over her. Robert Sterling looks like a man watching his career evaporate in real time. Maya takes David's hand and together they walk toward the restaurant's exit. As they pass James Rodriguez, Maya stops briefly. James, I want you to know that what happened here today is not your fault. You should never have been put in a position where you had to choose between your principles and your livelihood. Thank you, Mrs. Blackstone, James replies, his voice thick with emotion. Maya nods and continues toward the door, but she stops one final time and addresses the room. To everyone who witnessed what happened here today, I want you to remember something. Evil thrives when good people remain silent. Racism persists when privileged people refuse to acknowledge it. And injustice continues when those with power choose comfort over courage. She looks around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. Today, you all have a choice. You can pretend this never happened, go back to your meals, and continue living in a world where Victoria Sterling's behavior is tolerated as long as it doesn't affect you personally. Or you can recognize that what happened here could happen to anyone, and that your silence in the face of injustice makes you complicit in its continuation. With that, Maya and David Blackstone leave the Golden Terrace, their dignity intact and their message delivered. Behind them, Victoria Sterling collapses into a chair, finally understanding that her actions have consequences that extend far beyond this single afternoon. Robert Sterling stands motionless, calculating the political damage and wondering if his career can survive the video footage that is already spreading across social media. 1 week later, Maya Blackstone returns to the Golden Terrace for lunch. This time, she chooses a table in the center of the restaurant, rather than her usual quiet corner. When she enters, the entire staff stands and applauds, not because she is wealthy, but because she stood up for them when it mattered most. James Rodriguez approaches her table with obvious emotion. Mrs. Blackstone, I cannot thank you enough for what you did. Victoria Sterling's behavior had been affecting our staff for years, but none of us had the power to address it. Maya smiles warmly. James, you had more power than you realized. Sometimes it just takes one person with the courage to speak truth to make others realize they're not alone. The changes that followed that afternoon at the Golden Terrace rippled throughout the city. The video of Victoria Sterling's racist attack and subsequent humiliation had indeed gone viral, accumulating millions of views across social media platforms. The hashtags #JusticeServed, #StandUpToRacism, and hashtag Maya Blackstone became trending topics worldwide. More importantly, the incident sparked genuine conversations about racism, privilege, and accountability in ways that abstract discussions never could. Victoria Sterling's behavior was so blatant, her humiliation so complete, and Maya's response so principled that even people who typically avoided discussions of race found themselves forced to confront uncomfortable truths. David Blackstone had quietly implemented changes throughout Blackstone Industries' operations. The company established a $20 million fund for scholarships specifically aimed at students from underrepresented communities. They also instituted mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all employees and created an anonymous reporting system for incidents of discrimination. The impact on the Sterling family was swift and comprehensive. Victoria Sterling's social circle evaporated overnight as former friends distanced themselves from her toxic behavior. Her positions on various charity boards were quietly terminated, and invitations to social events stopped arriving. Robert Sterling's political career survived, but barely. The $50 million development project was quietly shelved, and several major campaign contributors withdrew their support. He was forced to issue multiple public apologies and commit to diversity training and community service as conditions for keeping his seat on the city council. Perhaps most significantly, the incident prompted changes in city policies regarding harassment and discrimination. New ordinances were passed, strengthening protections for service workers and establishing clearer consequences for public officials who abuse their positions. Maya continued her quiet philanthropy, but with a renewed focus on education and empowerment. She established the David and Maya Blackstone Foundation, dedicated to supporting organizations that fight discrimination and promote equality. The foundation's first major initiative was a partnership with local schools to provide workshops on recognizing and responding to racism. 3 months after the incident, Maya received a letter from Victoria Sterling. It was handwritten, several pages long, and represented what appeared to be a genuine attempt at understanding and accountability. Victoria wrote about seeking therapy, volunteering at community organizations, and slowly beginning to confront the privileged assumptions that had shaped her worldview. Maya never responded to the letter directly, but she did make a public statement expressing hope that people could change and grow from their mistakes, while emphasizing that forgiveness must be earned through sustained action, not just words. The Golden Terrace became an unexpected symbol of both the persistence of racism and the power of principled resistance. The restaurant implemented new policies ensuring that all customers and staff are treated with equal dignity, and James Rodriguez was promoted to general manager with a mandate to create an inclusive environment. On this particular afternoon, as Maya sits in the restaurant where she was assaulted for the crime of existing, while black, she is approached by a young black girl, perhaps 8 years old, who has been dining with her family at a nearby table. "Excuse me," the child says politely. "Are you the lady from the video?" Maya smiles gently. "Yes, I am. What's your name?" "I'm Zara." The girl replies. "My mum showed me the video, and she said you were very brave." "Your mum is very wise," Maya responds. "But you know what, Zara? I wasn't being brave. I was just being myself. Sometimes being yourself is the bravest thing you can do." Zara nods seriously. "My mum says that mean lady learned a lesson." "I hope so," Maya says. "But the most important lesson isn't for the mean lady. It's for people like you and me. Do you know what that lesson is?" Zara shakes her head. "The lesson is that we never have to accept being treated badly just because someone else thinks they're better than us. We never have to be quiet when we witness injustice, and we never have to let other people define our worth." The little girl's eyes shine with understanding. "So if someone is mean to me because I'm black, I should tell them they're wrong?" Maya's response carries the weight of generations of struggle and hope. Zara, you should tell them more than that they're wrong. You should show them who you really are. You should live your life so fully, so brilliantly, so authentically, that their small minds can't contain the magnificence of your existence. The child beams and runs back to her family, carrying with her a lesson that will shape how she moves through the world. As Maya finishes her lunch and prepares to leave, she reflects on the events that brought her to this moment. She thinks about the courage required not just to stand up to bullies, but to resist the urge for revenge when you have the power to destroy them. She considers the responsibility that comes with privilege and the obligation to use that privilege in service of justice rather than personal comfort. The voiceover of her thoughts provides the story's final message. Every day, each of us faces choices between silence and speech, between comfort and courage, between self-interest and justice. The question is never whether injustice exists. It does, and it always has. The question is whether we will be the people who stand up to it when our turn comes. Today, someone may underestimate you because of your skin color, your background, your appearance, or your circumstances. They may treat you as if you don't belong, as if you don't matter, as if your dignity is negotiable. When that happens, and it will happen, remember that your worth is not determined by their ignorance, your value is not diminished by their prejudice, and your power is not limited by their assumptions. The truth doesn't need permission to exist. Justice doesn't require an invitation to appear, and dignity doesn't depend on external validation to be real. The question is not whether you will face discrimination, prejudice, or injustice in your lifetime. The question is, when your moment comes, will you stand up? Maya Blackstone leaves the Golden Terrace for the final time in this story, but her legacy continues in every person who chooses courage over comfort, truth over convenience, and justice over silence. The restaurant returns to its normal rhythm, but it is forever changed by the afternoon when a woman refused to accept that her skin color determined her worth, and in doing so reminded everyone present that true power lies not in the ability to diminish others, but in the courage to stand undiminished in the face of those who try. The story ends not with revenge satisfied or enemies destroyed, but with the far more powerful resolution of principles upheld, dignity maintained, and a community educated about the difference between authority and leadership, between position and character, between power and strength. In a world where injustice often goes unchallenged and racism frequently hides behind politeness and social conventions, Maya Blackstone's story serves as a reminder that sometimes the most radical act is simply refusing to be diminished, and the most powerful weapon against hatred is the unwavering commitment to treat all people with the dignity they deserve, regardless of whether they extend the same courtesy to you. The truth, as Maya said, will slap back 1,000 times. And unlike those who abuse their power, the truth never apologizes.